Life is so busy. If you blink, you can miss something amazing. It's important to take a moment and enjoy what we have and the people around us. I'm Mo Hagan, Chief Operating Officer for CanFit Pro, and welcome to A Moment with Mo, a podcast where I will welcome some incredible guests to talk fitness and nutrition, mindset and self-empowerment, setting our goals into action, and much, much more. Now let's get chatting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode, A Moment with Mo, where I, Mo Hagan, your host, will dive deep into conversations around health and wellness, personal and professional growth. And I love these episodes because they're all very unique as our guests brings their incredible perspectives and lived experiences. And we will certainly have a unique episode today with my guest. And this episode will be very helpful for all of us as we embark on our future in terms of our health and our wealth. Now, why this podcast, A Moment with Mo? Well, my mission to inspire positive global change has been, I guess I can say, a lifelong pursuit. And it really was about 10 years ago when I embarked upon a coach to help me really deeply reflect on my life and my career. And it was then that it really hit me that I inspire and I really set forth my day-to-day career inspiring positive change for those that I have the opportunity to work with. And it's really important that you understand when you wake up in the morning, what is it that brings you the greatest amount of joy? Because that joy is wellness. And when you're doing what you desire in your career and in your life, then that is, in my opinion, true health and well-being. Now, when I really dove deep into what drives my daily action, I really had to find what I can align my intentions with so that those daily actions allow me to really not only live my why, but be authentic to helping others find their why. And how I do that is sharing stories, sharing my story, sharing stories of my guests. And stories really do help people, inspire people to take action, to live their story and then tell it and pay the path forward for others. So here we are today. My guest today is a really special human. And I absolutely love Aseel El-Baba. And I'd like to welcome Aseel to today's show. And then we will introduce you formally to Aseel and dive into deep questions around your area of incredible uniqueness. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you, Mo.
And Aseel and I met, as much as you come from a total different world and profession in the financial planning world. And I'm fascinated about your story and your journey. We met at a fitness event where I heard through many sources that you were the woman to bring to Women Who Influence. And we met a number of years ago there. In fact, just after you had your first baby. And that's therefore just over 2 years ago now. And then you've been actually presenting with CanFit Pro and many other areas. So for those who haven't had the opportunity to meet you, Aseel, I'd love just to share your bio and then have you dive a little bit deeper into how your bio became your journey in life today. Aseel is Toronto's first financial therapist and mental health expert. Well, that in itself is incredible, and we want to learn more about that. Aseel's impressive journey began over a decade of experiences in Canada's financial industry, specializing in financial planning and managing portfolios exceeding 100 million. Yes, 100 million. Recognizing a critical gap in the field, Aseel pivoted to mental health after completing a comprehensive 5-year psychotherapy training program. Aseel approaches financial challenges through a trauma-informed lens that connects emotional, psychological, and Relational Dimensions to Financial Health. Her innovative strategies have made her a sought after expert for organizations like Interact, RBC, and the Ministry of Labor. Aseel firmly believes that healing our relationship with money, we can transform not only our lives, but the world at large. So that's the one thing that we absolutely have in common is transforming the world, impacting the world through positive change through the work that we do, living our why every day. And you are a great example of that. So that's why I'm so excited to speak with you. And I first of all want to congratulate you on the courage for embarking upon a path that you created for yourself. And that is incredible, especially as a female entrepreneur.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here sharing my life's purpose with you. Honestly, when you're living from that space of purpose, you wanna share it with as many people as possible. So
That's so well said. You want to share it with so many people possible as you can. And it also makes you excited to work every day.
yeah,
And I'm sure, as myself, you love what you do. And every day, because you're changing the world every day as you go, that too makes it exciting. And I don't know how many I guess I'm blessed, Aseel. I'd love to hear from you. But a lot of the folks I work with, they love what they do, but that's not the case in
mhm,
corporate Canada or corporate America or the corporate world. So when you find something you absolutely love to do and you know you can create change every day aligned with your why, it makes work really a life journey versus a job.
sure. One of the things I say is that we can't heal the relationship we have with money without healing the relationship of how we make money. So it definitely starts there. How we bring money into our life through the works that we do impacts the emotions we have towards it from the get go, and therefore it impacts how we behave with it, how we spend it, how we manage it, how we invest it. So certainly, it's an angle that is very important to explore and understand.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. So,
Yeah.
without further ado, we're here with Aseel El-Baba, and we're going to talk about your relationship with money. So, the first question I'd love to ask you is: you in your bio, it did mention why you made this incredible pivot into the
Mhm.
work that you do today, and what it required from you in terms of your own comprehensive retraining, and you were already successful in what you did, but you there was obviously some gap or uh, change that you felt important to make for yourself and for your clients. So tell us a little bit more about the backstory of your journey and where it has brought you today.
Sure, absolutely. There's two layers of that. There's my own personal transformation, as well as the professional experience that I was starting to notice in my work through the different banks that I worked with. From a personal lens, I really have to go back to the first day I held a business card that says financial advisor on it because my journey started there as far as recognizing some of the imposter syndrome I was feeling that day, some of the confusing emotions I was going through. Because, on one hand, it should have been a celebratory day. I just landed a great job that has a lifelong trajectory of stability, of a really high income potential, as to all these things that I felt I desired and craved. On the other hand, we had just came from a war zone, and we were living on welfare in the food banks and the food banks and the housing system to really help us get established in a new country. I was with a single mom. I was the eldest of three siblings, so it was certainly not the easiest starting point in a new country. But I also still needed to reconcile, like, how can I be in of a position to be a financial advisor of, it felt like it's an all of a sudden moment.
Mm.
But when I started going to work, I would sit across from different walks of life and recognize that my own financial anxieties and worries around money and all these complex emotions that I didn't know how to process were mirrored back to me through all these different clients that would sit across from me, regardless what their income or net worth was. It was a shared thread that kind of um, brought all these experiences in a universal way. There was something really interesting about the patterns that I started to recognize. So, from a personal journey, I wanted to walk the walk and talk the talk. I wanted to support my clients in understanding um, the role of the role that money plays in their finances, and my financial certifications were falling short in addressing some of the more complex financial trauma that I was dealing with, given the background I just shared with you. So I became very intrigued around looking at money from different angles. Um, the soul of money, the art of money, the energy of money. I started reading books from all sorts of different unique lens, aside from like traditional financial planning and investment solutions, which were still obviously necessary and important as part of this conversation of financial wealth and health. And back in 2018, I had really interesting pivotal clients that planted the seed that something deeper here is happening, and I didn't have the tools to properly support them. On the surface, I thought I was dealing with the traditional gambler, overspender, hoarder, like the symptoms of how we refer to certain behaviors. But then I knew something much deeper was going on, and they planted the seeds for me that I wanted to support their long term sustainable financial health. And that's the year I decided to. There's a specific moment where a client left my office. He was an executive, highly paid, super successful, and yet struggling deeply with his own personal finance and financial boundaries. When he left my office, I made him cry that day unintentionally. I just asked deeper questions than what you would expect from a financial planner. And when he left my office, I Googled, how do you become a therapist in Toronto? And my journey started there.
I just got chills. That is an incredible what we learn from those that we serve are they can be the greatest teachers, or at
Yeah,
least help us realize that what we're doing, we really can go deeper, provided we have the tools. And then
for sure.
obviously that took you on your journey
Yeah.
through, I think your bio said, was it a 5-year
Yeah,
training?
I trained 5 years in psychotherapy, and prior to that, almost every other client would call me their therapist. So I started hearing that word a lot, but also my office looked very different than a traditional financial planner. So unlike a lot of my colleagues who would have traditional like interest rate charts and their financial degrees on the wall and things like that, I had a vision board. I had candles. I had like a water fountain. So it also felt like a therapist's office. Intuitively, I knew that I wanted to create an ambiance that clients felt safe in, that they felt emotionally supported by. And I was thinking about all the details I can add, which now it's a tool. I call it Money Date. Dating your money, where we target your five senses and rewire the associations you had around money to associate it with more calming and relaxing things versus what you normally associate money with for a lot of us anxiety.
Asil, I'm intrigued to ask you. You did mention earlier that you experienced some imposter syndrome. And then for you to set your office up to be very intuitively designed versus the traditional financial planner's office, what were your thoughts there? I always found that people would be they'd be such critical of, well, why do you have this and why do you have that? How did you deal with that being such a unique financial planner when you first started,
Sure.
knowing that you were meant for more in terms of how you serve your clients?
It's it's a question that's beyond the industry. It's really about self-awareness, and starting to understand who I am. My name actually means authentic and real, and I wanted to start embodying that. It was a Many things in my life were starting to show me that this is a lesson I needed to integrate and fully owning my uniqueness. Because when you're growing out up and you're a teenager, you want to like fit in as much as possible, and as you grow older, you realize like standing out is actually pretty cool. And like I don't mind that. It's something I'm gonna start embracing. So originally I was scared of standing out because I always did all my life, but I really hated it at the beginning because it felt isolating. It felt alienating. Just constantly thinking or internalizing that something may be wrong with me. But as I grew older and became more confident and self aware, I started embracing what is unique about me. So I literally, at one point, I worked in a very traditional bank setting, what you expect when you walk in a bank. I brought all these sheets that were filled with women empowering quotes. Like she believed she could do this, so she did, and like all sorts of things like that. And I blasted it all over my office. Um, a wall was just fully designed with different artwork and different really empowering phrases because I wanted my clients to also get to know who I am. I didn't want to hide behind my story, hide behind the struggles. I didn't want to say, here's, you should listen to me because I have all these degrees and all this training. Like it's one angle to it, but I'm qualified to do what I do because of what I've been through, because of how much I care, not so much just what I've learned along the way and some of the trainings I've accumulated. So I felt that everything in my office had a story about tools I used to support me in my lowest days and days where I needed someone to lift me up. And I wanted to be that for my clients.
The power of relationships. I mean, that is key, obviously, in the work that you do, because it's you're these, total strangers are trusting you with their deepest fears around the most important current, part of life, and that is our relationship with money.
Mhm.
So for you to stand out and use your uniqueness,
Mhm.
that breaks down barriers, I'm certain. I want to commend you, Aseel, for your authenticity to build relationships with your clients. Certainly takes trust in order to build that relationship. So for you to show up authentically as yourself, from how you relate to your clients through your own personal story, how you speak about how you even set up your office differently to empower yourself, but also to show your clients, we're all human and we all need, daily affirmations and reminders that we are amazing as we are. It's just we're always a work in progress. And why we are here together is to help each other, you know, become better so that we can do better. And
Absolutely.
so I commend you for that, especially in a world where I'm certain there is much judgment around how we conduct ourselves in the roles as leaders that we play. I
Mhm.
wanted to ask the question because in your bio, you talk about using a trauma informed approach to
Mhm.
financial challenges. Can you explain what that means and why it's crucial that you've used this in your practice?
100%. I think actually this is essentially what differentiates financial therapy from traditional financial planning. A trauma-informed approach essentially acknowledges that people's financial behaviors and anxieties are rooted in something beyond what we just see. It's not looking at the symptoms, which are usually the obvious behavioral things that people struggle with, like spending or gambling or hoarding or things like that. It's looking at the root of the problem, which is often rooted in past experiences like financial hardships, financial traumas, those things that haven't been processed. So it's really important to understand the impact that our trauma has on our financial behaviors. And our trauma doesn't have to be specifically correlated with a financial event in the past. It could be any type of trauma, big or small, but financial behaviors or the anxieties that we have about money were the consequences of this trauma. So recognizing the impact trauma has on our experience, on our emotions, on our behavior is a very powerful way so that we can also start looking at clients holistically as a whole versus just their behaviors, and micro zooming on just one angle of the complexity of what makes us human. Another really important aspect of that is when you have a trauma informed approach, you're creating a safe and supportive environment which prioritizes emotional safety and allows clients to feel comfortable sharing valuable experiences without judgment. The reason finance brings up a lot of shame and guilt around it is because of the fear of judgment people have around it. And sometimes a lot of my clients actually were financial professionals, were accountants, were investment advisors, and yet still struggled with personal financial decisions and personal finance. And there was a huge dissonance between how they showed up in their companies and then how they showed up in their own households and their personal finance. So a trauma informed approach recognizes the complexity and the depth and the layers that are involved in this conversation that are beyond just what numbers tell us. So to succinctly say it, essentially, it's recognizing the root of the problem, recognizing
Mm.
behaviors are connected to so much more than just what we see on the surface. There's thoughts and behaviors and belief patterns often rooted in the past that is important for us to understand. And it brings a holistic nature of a holistic part of this conversation. And my biggest thing is that it shifts the conversation from a critical lens into a compassionate lens. Because once we understand what happened, uh, it, it's it's almost like the shift between what's wrong with us to what happened to us,
Mm.
and that is very much missing in the financial space.
Wow. That is incredibly unique. I have a financial planner. I've had insight and support my whole adult career, and I guess I'm blessed with finding people that really
Hmm.
care about me as a like, and we all care about our clients, but really we're interested in understanding me versus just how I want to succeed with my finances in my career, in my life, for my life. And I guess I've been blessed, but I wish I found you when I found
Hmm.
you. And I'd love to know how perhaps we can help those that are listening today. I'm curious, what when you're working on healing your relationship with money and you're working with someone like yourself as a financial therapist, can you tell us a little bit about what that journey would take in terms of period of time?
Yeah,
That would be really helpful. And if you're able to share perhaps an example of a story of a client that really represents the work that you do to help those that are listening and watching what they could experience working with you and
sure.
or someone else, that would
I
be
love
really
this question
fascinating.
so much. There's two ways people work with me. Essentially, they can work with me one on one, or I also design group experiences, and I also do workshops and keynotes for more corporate employee programs, governments, things like that. So, on a one on one basis, it's important for me. I do offer complimentary consultation, which is a space for me to understand what are the major challenges a client is going through, what success looks like for them, what their experience has been in the past as far as therapy or coaching is concerned, if they've been exposed to that, and what worked and didn't work for them in the past. And this is where I assess resonance. If we are aligned, if I'm the right person to support them given where they are and where they want to be. And when I've established alliance with a client, and we call it therapeutic alliance essentially, um, and recognize that I am the right person to support them. Uh, there's different ways in how I approach it. Sometimes somebody's hiring me or creating a boundary with me that's very therapeutic in nature, and that's under the psychotherapy guidelines about what that relationship entails and what it looks like. But I also am a financial therapist and a coach, which has more abstract because it's not a regulated field as far as coaching is very different than therapy, and it's also very different in what the area of focus on. Therapy primarily recognizes or and that talks about the past experiences versus coaching is more future focused. There's more layers about what's different between both, but in my assessment, I kind of gauge if a client is better suited or supported in a more therapeutic process or a more coaching process. And then I design a proposal accordingly. Now, often it's a hybrid. Often there's times where we need to talk about and explore some of the emotional layers and deeper work, which therapy allows us to do. Other times, it's more about strategies and action plans and recognizing some of the mindsets and shifts that we require to create and creating an action plan that aligns with the new version that they're growing towards. So it's important to recognize where the client is and where they're at. What is fascinating about this work, though, and these are work client examples that I can pull to share, is like sometimes you think you're talking to me about a very specific financial hurdle or a challenge that you're having. And few minutes into the session, all of a sudden, now we're talking about something else because that's the deeper um, layer where this emotional complexity is happening in your life. So, very recently, for example, I'm talking to a client about a financial challenge. And within minutes, now we're talking about a divorce that she hasn't been over. And that a resentment that she carries with her is preventing her from currently achieving financial success and financial health. Because the way I describe it is like money is a vehicle of an emotional expression. So all the different emotions in our life, when they're not processed, when they're not fully fleshed out and understood and experienced, a lot of us we don't fully experience an emotion because we don't have proper financial literacy. We haven't been taught how to properly express an emotion, how to regulate our nervous system, and these are really important tools to help us um, integrate our human experiences. So when an experience isn't fully fleshed out, and by that we call it processed, there's three layers to it: the physical, the emotional, and the mental. So often people mentally talk about an experience, but unless you're able to also physically experience it emotionally, then that's where something about that is not fully um, flushed out. And
Hmm.
and if it's lingering into your life, it clings on certain magnets to express itself, and that's why we see patterns in food, sex, and money, because there's all these emotions underlying them that latch onto either food, sex, or money, and often maybe all three to express themselves, and that's why we see patterns. So this is the fascinating part about my work. Clients come to me thinking they're talking about money. Next thing you know, we're talking about relationships, miscarriages, death, birth, career, like self worth. So it's a very deep topic, and money is just the angle that
Hmm.
gives me access to the rest of your life. Is how I look at it.
Wow. That is unbelievable in terms of the work that you do. And I understood it, but now that you've really talked about the journey, it's incredible. And I'm curious, Aseel, when was there a moment, you said this earlier, but was there actually a moment as you got into this specific area of financial therapy that you knew that you were serving your purpose in this life? Like you did it evolve over time, or was it in one particular client
Mm.
interaction where you knew the work you do is making impact in the world?
I love this question because I'm always reflecting on it, and ultimately, this is why I'm doing this. There has to be a bigger cause associated to it. I've always been somebody who cared about the collective good versus just what the impact of my life would be. And there's so many stories. Like recently in a group, I love the group work particularly as well because I appreciate the value that community and normalizing talking about money brings into the equation. A lot of our trauma happens in relationships and thus are also healed in relationships. And certainly there's a therapeutic alliance in a relationship that you create with a therapist, but also when you bring a community around it, it amplifies it and potentially accelerates the growth as well because there's layers of accountability, of support. And within that group, it's a group of women. Last call, it's only our third session in. My group usually is about 8 sessions, so this is not even halfway through. And every single woman on that call, only three calls in, shared something she's been able to do for the first time in her life. One of them is a later stage in her life. She's closer to 70-year-old, and she was saying for the first time ever she was able to book an appointment for a financial advisor, go look at her numbers, start asking questions about how her finances are working, and recognizing where she is, because she's been financially avoidant all her life because of the fear and the anxiety she has about this area. Another woman said for the first time ever, she is actually um, journaling about her financial thoughts and looking at her spending very, very seriously because she has a very specific goal about paying her debt off. When in the past, she never cared about paying her debt. Her debt was actually a big part of her identity. She grew up with parents who had debt, and it just was a normal way of living. And now she actually made a goal that I want to be debt free. Um, Another client was starting to recognize that she actually works as an accountant, and that's the interesting part. A lot of my clients actually are financially savvy as far as like financial literacy is concerned. But she was also recognizing some of the belief systems she was holding about her role as a woman in a typically masculine dominated field. And sometimes that's impacting how she's charging clients, how she feels when clients don't pay bills, or how she's managing her business essentially as a woman in that space. Um, like I said earlier, how we make money and how we show up in the space is a very important angle to consider. Um, so all these things make me realize like I am living my purpose when I'm seeing tangibly what this looks like. And I do through my work also offer surveys to measure quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative, I ask clients what are some of the goals they'd like to achieve, be it paying down their debt, increasing their income, certain goals they feel that are important for them to achieve. But qualitatively, I like to get gauge what clients feel about money before they start working with me, and I get them to rate different things on an emotional scale, and also measure that after working with me. And you asked me earlier, what's a typical range? That does really quite vary. My group coaching is 8 sessions, 90 minutes biweekly, but a lot of clients, get one-on-one it's a hybrid approach where they do some group, but they do one-on-one as well to deepen the work with themselves. And there's never like coaching packages are different. I can design coaching packages with a certain end in mind and design how many sessions we need to get there. But from a therapeutic angle, there's no pre assumption of how much sessions we need because, like I said, there's layers that excavate as we start doing this work, and not necessarily every session is going to be about money, even though that's primarily what you came to see me. Um, every session is going to be about honoring what's happening in the present, how it may connect to your financial situation, but oftentimes we're working at layers and layers of things you haven't necessarily had the time or the space to look at. So I specifically have a client who saw me speak in a conference recently and hired me to talk about her. She's approaching retirement. She's anxious about that transition, and she wanted to talk about her financial anxiety. We're 5 sessions in, and we haven't even started talking about her money yet. Um, and each of the things that we've been talking about so far are incredibly important, and they are connected to her financial anxiety. But we need to deal with all of them and make space for the what she's been just repressing all along.
Yeah, the unique. And I thank you for sharing that because I'm sure as I'm sitting here right now, very curious about what that journey would be like. And I have heard you speak. I've been very blessed to hear you speak on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
What, people approach you after your talk. Can you share with us what typically they would ask you as a question following one of your information sessions or one of your presentations? And I guess the next part of that question would be for those who are as curious as I am, what that experience would be, and how can they best reach out to you or best connect
Yeah.
to find out
Thank
more.
you. Thank you. The first thing I hear from clients who've heard about me or my work for the first time is almost like a sigh of relief, like, oh my God, this exists. Of course it exists. And wait, why hasn't it existed before? Like it feels common sense when people hear it. It's like, of course, there has to be financial therapy, um, and naturally clicks something. Like I had a client, not a client, sorry, an attendee in a workshop approached me and said, just hearing the word financial trauma alone, just hearing that term, helped her process what's been happening for her. Just recognizing that there's more to this than we have been giving ourselves chance to reflect on and understand is in itself a revealing experience, and it shifts something in a client or in a group of attendees right away, which I'm very, very grateful for. So a lot of the people that come up to me after talking is like, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Now we're able to look at it from a different angle, and now we're able to have more compassion and more um, just readiness to approach this. Because in the past, when they think they have to approach their financial struggles with financial literacy tools, things they're like all these acronyms that are thrown at them that they feel not fully understanding, it can get really overwhelming and they can completely deassociate. So when I'm coming at it from a completely different angle, one of the best ways I've heard it being described to me is you talk about money without talking about money.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I thought this was brilliant. It really encapsulates what I'm trying to
Mhm.
do, because everyone has a seat at the table and everybody's invited to this conversation
Uh,
when it's presented in that way. And that's my purpose and my passion because of how integral this part of our life is. It needs to be something that we talk about. So if we create the right tools to allow us to talk about it, to allow us to uh, still integrate it, then I know I would have been contributing positively in
oh,
that
I love that. And the right environment with passion and readiness.
way.
And that's where change can happen when you meet people ready to embark on the journey and not just, feel like it's, a hindrance or they just have to do it versus
Yeah.
they desire to.
Mhm.
The work that you do and the way you serve the world is so special, Aseel, as you are. And I'm sure all our listeners who have, been with us today are really, really appreciative of the insights that you've provided. And I want to wrap up by just reminding everyone that we're speaking with Aseel El-Baba today, Toronto's first financial therapist. And you are definitely a woman who has influenced many. And I'm so grateful for our time together. And you really have demonstrated the intersection between financial health and mental well being and the relationship between the psychological, the mental, and the emotional relationship. And that's truly unique. And it's not just a profession for you. You can tell it's your mission to serve the
Mhm.
world. And my friends, that's really what purpose is. That's what why is, how you help the world by you, or world helped by you, which is an acronym for your why,
Mhm.
WHY. So I want to thank you for all your insights, your lived experiences, your expertise, and really helping us shape a new relationship and understanding and compassion with money. And realize, I loved what you say is people come to talk to you about money, but you realize that you can talk about it without actually talking about it, which is absolutely a beautiful aha moment that I had during our time together. I have a quote that I wrote down from the presentation I heard you say when I came to hear you speak last, and in my journal. And I have here a quote: "By healing our relationship to money, we can not only transform our lives, but also create a ripple effect that changes the world."
Mhm.
Maybe you could comment on that just before we close off and let people
Yeah.
know
Yeah, I love
where they
that
can
so
find
much,
you.
for sure. Um, at the end of the day, the economy is an extension of our value system. So when we look at the state of the world today, the affairs of the world, and we can see what industries are booming and which ones aren't. And sometimes it's important to reevaluate how we're spending our money, where we're spending our money. Are is is your credit card an expression of who you are, your credit card statement or your bank statement? Because this is what I tell my clients: show me how you spend your money, and I'll tell you who you are. And if there's a discrepancy and misalignment, this is where the work starts. We start asking questions about what's the gap, and how can you be living more in alignment with your values and have your money be an expression of that. But when we
Mm.
also heal how we make money and how we spend it and manage it, it's going to shift how we show up in our communities, how we parent differently, how we show up to work, what we do for work, um, and how we treat ourselves. Because ultimately, it's either operating from a scarcity mindset, which isn't just about how we work with our finances, it's a mindset that impacts our relationships, how we manage resources in general, our time, our energy, our relationships, all these pieces. Or abundance mindset, which is obviously similarly to scarcity, impacts all these different areas. So when each of us take this ownership of doing the inner work and addressing these challenges, that we're all on this human journey to evolve and to grow, then it's going to have a ripple effect to our communities and naturally to the world at large and to the obviously economy. This is why my business partner and I have two different parts of my business, and one of them I have an amazing business partner, Rhiannon, who is the founder of Conscious Economics. At one point, we were referring to it as economic healing. This is essentially what we feel we're contributing to, not just the way this impacts our individual finances, but the economy as a whole.
And Conscious Economics was the event where I heard you
Yeah,
speak
this is one
with
of the events
Rhiannon.
you saw me at for sure. So anybody listening to this can find more about our work at consciouseconomics.ca.
There you go, everyone. Conscious Economics. Say that one more time. Sorry.
Consciouseconomics.ca, and yeah, and you want to
Great.
find more about me, you can add me on my LinkedIn, and I offer complimentary consultations. So,
Thank you. And you heard it here, complimentary consultations, helping you understand more about how you can explore your relationship with your wealth as part of your total health. And I loved what you said about just, your credit card being an expression of who you are. I can't wait to look at my credit card because I, as a physiotherapist, always say that your posture
yeah,
is an expression of your person, your personality,
yeah,
how you show up in the world, how you feel about yourself, how you want to, you know, show up. And you just talked about how you can look at someone's credit card. So I can't wait to look at my credit card because my husband brings it home, shows me the bottom number. And then I'm always like, yeah, but honey, it's all for our health. And he's like, he and I have this different relationship with money. I invest it so I can be who I am, but I can't wait to look at my credit card. So thank you for that very smart tip for educating ourselves. And I'm going to close off by just thanking you and letting everyone know that, messages like this really do help us all get to the heart of the matter of who we are, how we want to be in the world, how we want to show up and do the work that we're blessed to be in this life to do. And so I want to thank you, Aseel, so very much for being part of this very unique episode. And it certainly is a special one. So thank you. And for those that want to learn more about these episodes and hear from other guests, you can always find out more episodes, A Moment with Mo, on your favorite podcast um, platform, or you can go to mohagan.com and you can check out all the episodes. And we are approaching 30 and beyond. So thanks so much, Aseel. Thank you all for being here today. And until next time, be well with everything, including your wealth.